All right, what is good, ladies and gentlemen, is the Mass Comparer back again with another comparison, and today we have, once again, as usual, a recommendation from Ethan King 7159, and we are going to be comparing the How to Train Your Dragon movies versus the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball movies. So that is what we are doing today, so let us just get into it, starting off with the protagonist. So in How to Train Your Dragon, you have Hiccup, and in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, you have Flint Lockwood. I would say probably I would give the protagonist point to Hiccup. I think that he is a more interesting protagonist to follow along to because I just like the struggle that he faces of having to bring peace between humans and dragons, and he faces the death of his father and stuff in the second film. In the third film, he has to face the decision to let go of the dragons and stuff. I think that it's just more interesting, like his struggles as a character, the bonds that he has with different people, the reunion with his mother, his relationship with his father. I think it is more interesting. I think that Flint Lockwood also has like a good, interesting relationship with his father, but it's not. I feel like it's not explored as much as it is in How to Train Your Dragon. So, yeah, Flint Lockwood, he's a good protagonist definitely, but he's like maybe better in like the comedic aspect, but in actual like as a protagonist, I think that Hiccup is better, I would say. In terms of the deuteragonist, in How to Train Your Dragon, it would be Toothless, I would say, probably, and in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, it would be Sam Sparks. I think that, Sam Sparks, she does actually talk, so she is more of like a human character, so she does end up like actually contributing, not necessarily contributing more to the plot, but she is, I guess, more, like, characters that talk tend to be a bit more memorable, I would say, but Toothless, I do think that he is a very good deuteragonist, and so this is a good one. I'd probably say, Toothless, I would say, just because of the fact that his role in each film kind of changes, where in the first film, he is kind of, he ends up forming the bond with Hiccup, and then he has to end up saving Hiccup by the end of the movie. In the second film, it's like Toothless ends up getting mind controlled, and so I think that aspect is interesting. In the third film, he ends up like falling in love with the Light Fury, and so he kind of ends up leaving. Point is, I think that it's good that like I still am getting their names confused. I don't know why. You know why? It's because it sounds like Hiccup and Toothless could both sound like dragon names, or I don't know, Viking names, I guess, as well. So anyway, in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Sam Sparks is good, but she does kind of just play the same role in both films, where in the first, not necessarily, but in the first film, she is just kind of trying to reason with Flint, trying to warn him, like, hey, you're going too far with this. It's like, you need this isn't going to end well. And she does that in the first film, and also in the second film, she's also doing the same thing of basically saying, like, hey, maybe we're doing the wrong thing here. It's like, maybe we should think about what we're doing here. So, but I still think she's good, and yeah, I do like the dynamic. I like the chemistry she has with Flint, I would say, but overall, I would still probably say that Toothless was a better deuteragonist. In terms of antagonist, I'm giving this once again to How to Train Your Dragons because it is. Yeah, I think that the antagonists there are better. Like, I guess excluding Red Death, because Red Death was fine, but just very generic and basic as like a final boss fight for the first film. So, but I think that Drago is very menacing, and Grimmel is also very good, very cunning, very smart and stuff in it. So I liked just watching both of their plots unfold, I guess, from both villains. Whereas in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, I don't really like the mayor's motivation is pretty weak. It's just like he just wants to keep eating food, I guess, and I guess he wants to turn Swallow Falls into a tourist attraction, which it's fine, but it's like very standard, greedy, corrupt mayor politician character that is just doing things for the sake of his own benefit, and even like overlooking the potential downsides of like whatever plan he has. And the second film of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, you have Chester V, who is a bit better, I would say, just for the fact that like his character is a bit more unique and stuff. He's like a lot more fluid, very more manipulative towards Flint, I would say, and like smarter as well. He got like the holograms and stuff, but he ultimately also doesn't have the best motive of he just basically wants to improve the taste of his food bar, I guess. And so it doesn't feel as, again, it's just not the best motive. Whereas Drago, he just like is a power hungry warmonger. I think that is, not the greatest motivation ever, but I think that is a good motivation for the second film of How to Train Your Dragons. And Dragon, I'm saying for some reason, it's How to Train Your Dragon and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. So one is plural, one is singular. So anyway, in the third How to Train Your Dragon film, Grimmel just he lives for the hunt. I think that Grimmel was also a bit. By the end, he was a bit of a disappointment with how easily he got defeated, but even so, I think that earlier in the film, he earned the respect I have for him as a villain, I would say, like, in the first half of the film. So, yeah, the antagonist, I'm giving it to How to Train Your Dragon. In terms of the side cast, let's see here, in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, there's basically Earl, Manny, Tim, aka Flint's dad. There is Brett, and yeah, all these characters, they're fine. They're not my favorite, I would say, but they got their moments. And in How to Train Your Dragon, you have Valka, Stoic, Astrid, already off the bat, like Gobber, like all off the bat, these are already like way better characters, I would say. It's not loud fish legs like the rest of the teenagers. Rough Nut, Tough Nut, they're fine. Eret, Son of Eret, like those ones are also good, but like not as good as the first ones I mentioned. So yeah, I'm going to give these sidecasts to How to Train Your Dragon because I'm sorry, just like Stoic, Valka, Astrid, Gobber, all four of those are just better than like Earl was. I don't know, the cast of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, like the sidecast, they're just kind of meant to, I guess, I don't know, they're just like the friends of Flint that are just coming along for the sake of it, I guess. So I think in the first film they sort of serve a purpose. Like Earl inspires everyone to not try to destroy Flint's flying car. Brent, he ends up like saving both Sam and Flint while they're in the giant meatball. Manny, he's like the pilot and the doctor of the crew. And so yeah, they kind of serve a role in the first film, whereas in the second film they're just kind of like along for the ride, and it doesn't really feel like they're doing anything, to be honest. So yeah, I'm going to give and in How to Train Your Dragon, just again the like Stoic, fantastic character. I just did my How to Train Your Dragon character ranking, and he was my favorite character. Just absolutely great. The moment, like the arc that he goes through in the first film, and the relationships he has in the second film. Valka, great introduction in the second film, also still good in the third film. Astrid, just very great character the entire way through the franchise, and so yeah, definitely the sidekick. Gobber, very very funny. And if you want my thoughts on these characters, just I recommend checking out my ranking that I just did for the How to Train Your Dragon's characters. So in terms of the settings, which one had the better settings? So Cloudy and the Chance of Meatballs does have some nice areas. With the jungle area, I didn't really like as much as just the town itself in the first film that has food rating down on it. I think that was a bit more, if anything, it was a bit more unique, I would say. Even if like I would say the food jungle was a bit more creative, I think that it was a bit more unique having like a town where food reigns that feels a bit more unique than just like a food themed jungle, I would say. So yeah. In terms of How to Train Your Dragon, there are definitely very cool Viking settings. The actual town of Berk in the first film, the second film, the ice areas I think are very nice. In the third film, it does get a bit too medieval for my taste. Like I would have liked them to stick with a bit more of the Viking themed, and the hidden world was a bit of a letdown, I guess I could say. I didn't really care for it too much. So yeah, I would say both franchises have like areas that are like very, I guess, visually nice, but are a bit of that I don't really care for as much. Specifically, the food jungle and the hidden world, I would say. So both of those like are not as good as just the surprisingly more, I guess, what you would think are like a bit more generic, which is just the Viking village and the ice areas in How to Train Your Dragons and the basic town of Swallow Falls. But again, like there is food rating there, so it does make it a bit more unique. So which one did I like these settings more? I think ultimately still probably How to Train Your Dragon, because the town of Berk is a pretty nice setting, I would say. The forest areas there as well. And the snow areas in the second film also were very nice, I would say. And yeah, I thought I like the settings in How to Train Your Dragon better. How to Train Your Dragon better, I would say. In terms of the plot, definitely How to Train Your Dragon. I think that the first film had like a fantastic plot. The second film as well, I would say. And the third film, a bit lower in terms. Like I think in each of my reviews, I think I gave the first film of How to Train Your Dragon a 5 out of 5. The second one a 4 out of 5. The third one a 3 out of 5. So it does kind of like have a downward progression in terms of the plot quality, in my opinion. Not quality necessarily, but just like how much I liked each plot. But even so, like that's still, all of them were good, I would say. Whereas like in the, I as well, I liked all the plots in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I think I gave the first film a 4 to 5 and then the second film a 3 to 5. So yeah, I think that both franchises, they have good plots, but I think that it's more interesting in How to Train Your Dragon because I guess the stakes are higher compared to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, where the stakes are also pretty high, I would say. But I think that, I'll say this, I think Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is probably like a bit more of a unique plots that it's got going on. But How to Train Your Dragon feels a bit more, I guess, well written, I would say, in terms of its plots of like the war in the second film, the war that kind of also the war in the first film, I guess, between the dragons and the humans and stuff. The third film with Grimmel hunting them down, it's just more interesting stuff than compared to the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball films, which are the first film. I did like the plot a lot, but the second film, it does feel just a bit generic of just a basic jungle exploration mission, it felt like. So in terms of the drama, once again, How to Train Your Dragon, I'm going to give the drama because, yeah, it was definitely, the franchise as a whole is just a more dramatic franchise compared to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is meant to be more on the comedic side, I would say. So in terms of which genres I chose to choose, to include in this. I chose drama because it felt like both franchises had drama, but I didn't include comedy because I don't think I actually rated any of the How to Train Your Dragons movies for its comedy, because they really, they might be listed as comedies and they probably do have some comedy in them, but not enough for me to really justify them being comedy films, because they're not really comedy films. They're meant to be more serious films. So yeah, in terms of the drama, I'm going to give it to How to Train Your Dragon. Definitely very dramatic. The Stoic's death in the second film, the dragon human tension, Viking tension in the first film, the stuff involving Grimmel in the third film, just very dramatic. And yeah, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs drama. There is good drama definitely in the first film, it feels like. The second film, I guess, also to an extent, when it's Chester reveals himself to be evil, that as well, I guess, is fine drama, but definitely does not compare to How to Train Your Dragon, I would say. In terms of cultural impact, I would say probably How to Train Your Dragon. I would say I do think maybe Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs has a bit more meme, what's the term? It has more of a meme cultural impact, because I do think I see more memes of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs compared to How to Train Your Dragon, which off the top of my head I can't really think of a lot of. Well, there's the whole the meme that was very big in the day of Stoic saying you're as beautiful as the day I lost you, that line. So I think both films probably have certain. Yeah, but I think both franchises probably have some memes to them every now and then, but I think just overall more people probably are more familiar with How to Train Your Dragon. I think it is just a bigger franchise compared to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. So I'm going to give it to How to Train Your Dragon. In terms of clothing, definitely How to Train Your Dragon. I think that Toothless, Hiccup's dragon rider outfit in the second film. The first film was pretty basic. It's okay, just basic Viking stuff. It still looks good, I would say, but the second film, when you get to I keep thinking Toothless. His name is not Toothless, it's Hiccup. Hiccup's dragon rider outfit in the second film looks absolutely incredible. Honestly, one of my favorite character outfits that a movie or even piece of media in general has had. I think that he looks fantastic. The third film does kind of ruin it a bit, I'm going to be honest, where it does get a bit too medieval once again. So, but just for the second film, that automatically gives the point to How to Train Your Dragon. And Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs has, Flint Lockwood, he's got his iconic lab coat and stuff. There is, I don't know, all the other characters. There's not really much clothing to talk about. There's, I guess, the Think One Not vests, which I don't really care for it in the second film, but yeah, overall I'm going to give it to dragons. In terms of equipment, both films actually have a good amount of equipment, but I'm going to probably give it to How to Train Your Dragon once again, because it is just very cool equipment. I think it feels a lot more well thought out, whereas it feels more realistic, I'll say, in How to Train Your Dragon, whereas in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, it feels okay, this is very improbable and hard to, it feels okay, the fact that Flint is just able to make these machines, it feels less realistic, just being a machine that can turn water into food, the machine that's just out of a bunch of junk, he was able to make a tracker that shoots a consistent laser towards the Flint Stimftifer, that it's fine equipment that serves the plot, I guess, well in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I'm trying to think if there was any other equipment that I might be missing. There was also the party in a box thing. It's all meant for comedic purposes or just to serve the plot, whereas in How to Train Your Dragon, it does feel more cool, I would say, as well, where it's the peg leg that Hiccup has, his sword that the flame sword that sprays out the gas, that's based on the what's called the horrendous Zippleback, I'm pretty sure, or the hideous Zippleback. Yeah, so I think that those are really cool. The weaponry that they use, Volka's staff thing, Drago's staff, you could say Grimmel's crossbow and stuff. I think that it is all just really cool in How to Train Your Dragon, and so I think that just the fact that there's good inventions and equipment in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, but I think that it's just much cooler in How to Train Your Dragons, I would say. Voice actors, I'm going to give this to, once again, How to Train Your Dragon, because the voice acting in How to Train Your Dragon was definitely fantastic. The emotional moments, the singing sequence in the second film, the Drago in the second film, Hiccup, his rage sequences, I think that those were pretty well done. I think that in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, once again, they kind of focus a bit more on comedic line deliveries and stuff, which it's fine, but definitely I do the more emotional aspects and the more powerful voice line deliveries. Stoic, his Gerard Butler, I'm pretty sure that's his name, just voicing Stoic the entire way through is some of the best voice acting that I've heard. Gobber's voice, let me try my impression. The Viking, no, I can't do it. What is it, Scottish, something like that? The Viking accent, no, I can't do it. I could do it, but I would have to get into the into the state of mind, which I'm not going to do that now. But yeah, the Viking accents in the How to Train Your Dragon films that are fantastic. No, I can't do it. I'm starting to get into like Australian or something like that. I would have to practice it to really get it good. So yeah, definitely I'm going to give the voice acting to How to Train Your Dragon just very solid voice acting. Also in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, but once again just yeah, doesn't compare to How to Train Your Dragon, I would say. In terms of soundtrack, this is a good one. Both films do have good music, I would say. Like, I think the actual soundtrack in How to Train Your Dragon is really good. It's got like some good orchestra scenes and stuff that sound fantastic. And in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, in the first film, there's like the lollipop sequence where there's the montage of like all the food raining down and stuff, and like basically Flint taking requests. And in the credit sequences of both Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs films, there is a good amount. Like they actually choose really good songs. The It's Raining Sunshine in the first film and the La Da Dee La Da 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 song in the second film, I think that those were good. So yeah, both films actually do have good music, and just because of the fact that Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs actually did not get a point up until this point, I'm going to give a point to both, just because yeah, I liked both films had good music, and so I'm just going to give a point to both just to make it a bit more fair. There's also, I guess, the music sequence in How to Train Your Dragon, which, okay, I'm going to be honest, I am leaning a bit more towards How to Train Your Dragon, but I'm just going to give a point to both just to, there's no way I think that Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs can really make a comeback at this point, but whatever, still for the sake of it. In terms of the visuals, I think that I probably like the How to Train Your Dragon visuals, the dragon stuff, all the Viking-esque scenery, all that stuff, the action, a lot cooler, I would say. Just a lot more stuff going for it in the visuals department, whereas in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, it's like the first one has like the food, weather and stuff, which is good, but it is like also a bit one note with it, where it's like, okay, yeah, food falling, okay, that's pretty much it, or in like the food hurricane and stuff. And in the third act of the first film, it does get a bit too messy for my liking, I would say. And in the second film, the food jungle, it's also some more nice visuals, but even so, I just still like the How to Train Your Dragon visuals a bit better, I would say. Definitely just looks a lot cooler, I would say, all the stuff that's going on with, again, the Viking scenery and all that. So yeah, in terms of which one has the better title, okay, both films actually have pretty unique titles. There's How to Train Your Dragon versus Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. So I'm not sure. I think Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs probably works a bit better as a title, because it's like playing off the whole the saying like, oh, it's going to be cloudy with a chance of rain usually, but it's like the pun is that it's meatballs. I don't need to explain this. And in How to Train Your Dragon, I guess it's like this film is about how to train a dragon, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. I think that both titles work, so I will just give a point to both. I think both are equally good, I would say. So in terms of which one I personally like better, I like the How to Train Your Dragon films better. Just worked a lot better for me. Yeah, for I guess all the reasons that I kind of explained through this recording. Yeah, just overall, it's just a more interesting film series, I would say, compared to like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. It's more like trying to focus on comedy aspects, and I think How to Train Your Dragon, it's trying to be a bit more serious, and it succeeds in telling a more serious, compelling story compared to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, where it doesn't take itself as seriously, I would say. So yeah, both franchises are good, definitely, but I do think that How to Train Your Dragon is better. So this is, I think, one of the most one-sided comparisons that we've done up until this point. We have Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs with only 2 points compared to How to Train Your Dragon, which did get a point in every single category. So let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It is 15-2 in favor of How to Train Your Dragon, so How to Train Your Dragon is the winner. So yeah, once again, big thank you to Ethan King 7159 for the recommendation. Really do appreciate it. Anyone that has any recommendations, any shows, movies, video game stories, anime, manga, web series, anything that you want me to review or rank or compare rankings, it does not have to be media related. It could be anything. Leave it in the comments and I will maybe possibly check it out. With that said, that is pretty much all there is to it. So let's leave it at that.